Hey everyone, Sparrow Spalding here, and today we're talking about the 12 traits that tend to attract a narcissist. So if you have any of these traits, listen up and pay attention. And by the way, I just want to give a shout out. I got the inspiration for this video from a guy who runs an Instagram page. I think he calls it Healing Out Loud. And he touched on some of these briefly, and I thought, you know what, it's a great video. I want to expand it and think about all the traits people possess that seem to attract a narcissist. Okay, ready? Here we go. Number one, of course, kind, loving, compassion, all of those things. If you are a kind, compassionate person, you could attract a narcissist because they want that for themselves, right? They want you to be kind and compassionate. If you're kind of bitchy, or if you're disagreeable, you're probably not going to attract them very much because they know right away they're not going to get their way with you. So if you find yourself a warm person, if people tell you you're a warm, caring person, they are going to look for that. If you're a people pleaser at all, if you have a need to be liked or have a need to be accepted, that's going to attract a narcissist, right? Because they're going to think, well, hey, he or she is going to want to please me. Win-win, right? Except it's not a win-win. It's a lose for you. But if you find yourself having that people-pleasing drive, it's really, really important to dig deep and figure out why. Where does that come from? And let's get rid of that. We don't have to be a people pleaser to get through this life. As a matter of fact, it's just going to cause us chaos, drama, disappointment, heartbreak, etc. So keep that in mind. Number three, if you've really never felt like you've belonged, right? And this is different from, some other traits of maybe worthlessness, but that's certainly one. But if you've really just kind of felt like you're a little bit on the outside of life, never really felt like you fit in or belonged, narcissists will home in on that, and they'll be able to sense that chink in your armor, and they'll say, okay, wow, here's an easy target. This person has never really felt like they fit in. I'm going to make them feel like they fit in the beginning, right? We know how that works. Number four, if you're a trauma survivor or broken in some way, this is like, this is like blood to a vampire, honestly. A narcissist is really going to be attracted to that because, if they see those chinks in your armor, right? If you're broken in some way, then they're going to find it easy to conquer you and get what they want from you and bleed you dry. So if you are any kind of trauma survivor, make sure you're getting help. Make sure you're in counseling or in a support group or reading self-help books and working on yourself to make sure that you're not going to leave yourself vulnerable to the attack of a narcissist. Number five, low self-esteem, right? This is a given. And this kind of goes along with that deep sense of worthlessness that you may not even realize that you have. A lot of times it's not until we really start digging in and getting professional help that we go, wow, okay, I don't feel worthy. And that really comes from oftentimes just having parents or being raised in environments where we weren't made to feel worthy or like we mattered, right? And that goes right along with that being a trauma survivor oftentimes too. So if we are insecure, if we're feeling down about ourselves, again, that's going to be very attractive to a narcissist because they're going to be able to control us in some way. They're going to be able to even break us even further. And there's going to be that part of them that likes to see that, right? That they want to crush you a little bit because in order for them to feel better about themselves, they have to stand on top of you. Get it? Number six. This is interesting. If you have a really high self-esteem, sometimes that will also attract a narcissist. And typically, it could attract an overt or a covert, but a lot of times it does attract the covert narcissist because they want what you have. They don't have the good self-esteem. So they want it and they think they can get it by osmosis, or they think they can get it by crushing it out of you. And so if you have a high sense of self, you could be vulnerable to a narcissistic attack because they will be jealous of that. They will be envious and they'll be enamored of it in the beginning as well and go, oh my gosh, this person's amazing. And that's the key. If you hear somebody saying over and over, in the beginning, oh, you're so amazing, pay attention to that. That's often a red flag. Number 7, if you're naive, if you're too easily trusting, if you're easily led, this is definitely fodder for a narcissist because they can manipulate you, right? You will believe every lie that they tell, and they're going to tell a lot. And so really pay attention if people have called you naive, if they've said, hey, you're kind of naive or you're too trusting. You really want to take stock in that because, and especially if you've already been in a relationship with a narcissist, you know you've been burnt. We don't want to get back out there, with those same traits that got us in the disastrous relationship in the first place, right? So, if somebody tells you something, hey, that's great. Can I see evidence of that? Right? Years ago, I dated a guy who lied. He told me he had a master's degree and he didn't have a master's degree. And so now being a little older and wiser, if somebody says, I have a master's degree, I might want to say, well, let me see your diploma. Let me see that diploma. Oh, good for you. But I might want that evidence because I was lied to. Number 8, anyone with an addiction or a compulsion. So think about this. If you struggle with an eating disorder or any kind of disordered eating, doesn't have to be anorexia or bulimia, it could be binge eating, stress eating, whatever the case, or if you have an addiction. Now, if you have a pretty severe addiction, a narcissist may not be interested in you because then you might become more of a burden, unless you have a bunch of money or something. But if you have a mild to moderate addiction, you're probably going to be attractive to a narcissist because they can use that against you, they can use it to manipulate you, and it just makes you overall a weaker person for them to conquer. Number 9, if you had any sort of narcissistic parents growing up or addicted parents, this is, this predisposes you to be attracted to the narcissist, and therefore they're going to be in turn attracted to you. So, they're going to see you coming and they're going to go, okay, wow, this person already knows the game. Even if consciously they don't want to date a narcissist, subconsciously they're programmed to date a narcissist. And this is just going to not bode well for you, right? So if you are that person that had narcissistic parents or addicted, drug or alcohol addicted parents, pay close attention to who you're dating, to who you're attracted to. See if you can make any connections. Oh, he does this just like mom or just like dad or vice versa. And, we want to be really careful of that. And also, I have worked with clients in the past that maybe didn't have narcissistic parents, but maybe they had an early relationship with a narcissist. And that person sort of set the stage to what they were going to later attract into their lives. So really important to pay attention to that. Number 10, if you're a good listener, hey, a narcissist is going to be really attracted to you because they like to talk about themselves, right? And so you're going to sit there and let them go on and talk about all their delusions and all of their complaints if they're a covert narcissist, their gripes and their complaints and how they hate the world, etc. And you might want to pay attention to this because sometimes it's really great to be a good listener, but don't be so much of a listener that you're not sharing. A relationship is very much of a give and take. If you find yourself quiet more often than not, pay attention to why. Why don't you speak up? Why don't you talk about, your thoughts, your feelings, your opinions, your hopes and dreams? And hopefully you can get yourself to a place to where you feel comfortable talking about them. And if you're in a relationship where it's not safe to talk about those things, then of course you have to reevaluate the relationship because you do want to be able to talk about yourself and share your hopes and dreams, etc. Very important. Number 11, if you're a fixer, this is going to be really attractive, especially to a covert narcissist because they tend to not be able to run their own lives very well. They're going to need you frequently to step in and take the reins, fix things, even if they don't want you to. It's almost like they'll hate it when you do it, but then when you step back, they'll ask your opinion 20 times a day. What should I do about this? Or what should I do? Oh, I didn't pay this bill on time. Oh, I didn't do this. And pretty soon, you're that fixer all over again. Even if you swore when you ended your last relationship that you're like, I'm never getting into another relationship like this again where I have to run the show or I have to fix everything. And then you wake up one day, you're like, how did this happen? Well, it's because we're we're conditioned early on in certain situations to be that rescuer, to be that fixer. And we know what that's called: codependency, right? And there's two sides to codependency. You can be the codependent controller fixer, or you can be the codependent weakling victim, right? And both are not great. They're kind of two sides of the same coin, right? We want to be interdependent. We don't want to be codependent. But if you are codependent, that narcissist is going to home in on that, and they're going to be attracted to you. All right, number 12, if you have an insecure attachment style. And if you're not too familiar with attachment styles, I highly recommend that you familiarize yourself. A great book out there is called Attach by Amir Levine, I believe is his name. And it talks all about secure attachment versus insecure and why we develop one versus the other. And the two insecure attachments are avoidant or anxious avoidant. Actually, you could be avoidant, you could be anxious, or you could be anxious avoidant, which is, that's a double whammy. And we save that for the real trauma survivors typically. That a lot of times we can come out being anxious avoidant. And that just really means that, we want that person to love us, but then as soon as they kind of come at us, then if something doesn't go quite right, we'll push them away. That's just a brief description. But if you're an anxious attachment style, then that's perfect for a narcissist, because then you're going to be waiting for their every call. You're going to be hanging on their every word, or do they like me? Do they approve of me? Kind of goes back to that, do I fit in? And so if you're anxious like that, they're just going to use it to manipulate you, and they're going to reel you in the beginning with the love bombing that make you feel so special, loved, wanted, cherished, all of that. And then as soon as you start to get comfortable and go, oh, you know what? I don't feel quite so anxious. Then they hit you. They hit you with the withdrawal, the avoiding, the insults, the arguing, the threatening the relationship, all of the above, right? So keep that in mind. If this was helpful, guys, please click below, like, share, and subscribe. As always, hug yourself from me, and we'll see you next time.